want to talk about Whoopi Goldberg because I got so many texts this week because she attacked me the week before.
Sure.
So she was, everybody was like, oh, Bill, I get you're enjoying the karma. First of all, I'm going to talk about this at the end of my show next week, teaser. But there is no thing as karma, okay? Get over that.
Whoopi Goldberg and Bill Maher have never exactly been best friends, but their latest feud is a train wreck of contradictions, hypocrisy, and the kind of unfiltered drama Hollywood pretends to be above. One moment, Whoopi calls for cancellations like she's a one-woman HR department, and the next, she cries foul when the same rules get applied to her. Meanwhile, Bill Maher, ever the smirking troublemaker, is standing on the sidelines, watching it all unfold with that "I told you so" energy. But how did we even get here? How did a Hollywood veteran like Whoopi go from lecturing everyone on morality to getting benched by the very people she thought had her back? And why does it always seem like Bill Maher comes out of these situations untouched, while his critics look ridiculous? Buckle up, because this isn't just a story about two celebrities clashing over opinions. It's about how Whoopi walked right into a mess of her own making, and why the internet was more than happy to point it out. To understand why Whoopi Goldberg and Bill Maher can't seem to stay out of each other's way, we have to rewind a few years, to a time when lockdowns were endless, toilet paper was currency, and everyone suddenly had a PhD in epidemiology.
News sources have to rein it in. Everyone knows Corona is no walk in the park, because you literally can't walk in the park. But at some point, the daily drumbeat of depression and terror veers into panic porn. Enough with the "life will never be the same" headlines. And stop showing us this. You know, everything looks scary when you magnify it 1,000 times. Here's a pubic hair. Boo!
Bill Maher, never one to keep his mouth shut, dared to suggest that maybe, just maybe, it was time to stop living in fear and move on with our lives. Radical, right? Well, Whoopi Goldberg certainly thought so.
Nobody on the planet really wants to go through this. This is not something we're doing because it's, sexually gratifying. This is what we're doing to protect our families. And you don't have to do it, but stay away from everybody. Because if you're the one who's not paying attention and you're coughing and sneezing, you don't want to, then stay out of the public, man. This is not, nobody wants this.
Over on The View, Whoopi didn't just disagree with Maher. She unleashed the full force of her moral outrage, painting him as careless, irresponsible, and worst of all, wrong. Because if there's one thing Whoopi can't stand, it's people having opinions that she didn't approve first. Her response was exactly what you'd expect. A dramatic monologue about protecting the vulnerable, a stern warning about public responsibility, and a dash of performative outrage for good measure. But there was just one problem. The audience wasn't exactly on her side. In fact, Maher's stance resonated with way more people than Whoopi expected, and that's when things started getting awkward. Because, see, when Whoopi speaks, she expects applause, not pushback. But this time, people weren't clapping, they were questioning. And that was just the beginning. Because soon enough, Whoopi would find herself in a position she never saw coming, on the receiving end of the very outrage she spent years fueling. Now, here's where things start getting interesting. Because while Whoopi was busy calling out Bill Maher for being irresponsible, she didn't realize she was heading straight for a controversy of her own. See, Whoopi has always played referee in the game of who gets to have an opinion and who doesn't. She's been quick to call for consequences when someone steps out of line, until she became the one stepping straight into the fire. Enter the Holocaust controversy.
About it, because the Holocaust isn't about race. No, it's not about race.
No, it's about a different race.
But it's not about race. It's not about race.
What is it about?
Because it's about man's inhumanity to man. That's what it's about. You turn it into race, it goes down this alley. Let's talk about it for what it is. It's how people treat each other. It's a problem. It doesn't matter if you're black or white, because black, white, Jews, Italian, everybody, eats each other.
During an episode of The View, Whoopi, armed with the kind of confidence only daytime talk show hosts seem to have, decided to inform the world that the Holocaust wasn't about race. The internet immediately exploded. Historians, journalists, and basically anyone with a history book pointed out just how spectacularly wrong she was. Suddenly, the same cancel culture that Whoopi had defended came knocking on her door. ABC wasn't about to risk their reputation over this one, so they hit the suspension button faster than Whoopi could backtrack. 2 weeks off, The View, a timeout, if you will. Now normally, this would be the moment where Bill Maher would rip into his opponent. After all, here was someone who had spent years defending cancel culture, now getting a taste of it firsthand. But instead,
Whoopi Goldberg, who, by the way, I hope is still a friend, we can disagree with each other, should not be canceled or put off her show, as much as I totally disagree with her crazy statement. Free speech. She should be there. She shouldn't get a timeout.
Maher did something unexpected. He defended Whoopi. Yep. He argued that she shouldn't have been suspended, proving once again that his biggest issue isn't with individuals, it's with the system's hypocrisy. But Whoopi, she didn't exactly take the hint, because instead of stepping back and maybe rethinking her stance on outrage culture, she did what Whoopi does best. She doubled down, and that was about to make things so much worse. If there was ever a time for Whoopi to take a step back, reflect, and maybe, just maybe, stop talking for a while, this was it. But nope, Whoopi isn't one to let a controversy slow her down. Instead of taking her 2-week suspension as a wake-up call, she came back to The View with even more confidence and even less self-awareness. When pressed on her Holocaust comments, did she apologize and move on? Nope. She doubled down, insisting that her definition of racism was different and therefore her original statement still somehow made sense.
Yes. And so that is what race means to me. When you talk about being a racist, I was saying you can't call this racism. This was evil. This wasn't based on the skin. You couldn't tell who was Jewish. They had to delve deeply.
She kept digging, as if the deeper the hole, the more likely people were to suddenly agree with her. And just when you thought this couldn't get any worse, she hit the gas pedal. Because next up, she tried playing the victim. She claimed she was misunderstood and unfairly criticized, and that she was the real target here. The irony? She had spent years dismissing other people's claims of being unfairly canceled. And while this was happening, Bill Maher, probably watching from the comfort of his studio, didn't even have to say a word. The hypocrisy spoke for itself. After digging herself into multiple controversies, she now set her sights on a bakery. Yes, a family-run bakery, because apparently nothing says fighter for justice like going after people who make cupcakes. Here's what happened.
The place that made these refused to make them for me.
Oh.
Really? Yes.
What?
Oh, no. Let me explain. They said that their ovens had gone down, all kinds of stuff, but folks went and got them anyway, which is why I'm not telling you who made them. But can't be because I'm a woman, but perhaps they did not like my politics. Yeah.
Whoopi claimed that a bakery refused to make her birthday cake because of her politics. A bold accusation, right? The kind that could destroy a small business, if true. But the internet did what the internet does best, fact-checked her into oblivion. And what did they find? The bakery's equipment was broken.
The story here is this Holterman, the family is wonderful. They're the salt of the earth. They've had a business for 146 years. Not many people can say that. They have an impeccable reputation. People love them and their business. And then this woman went on national television and basically misrepresented what happened.
That's it. No political agenda, no hidden conspiracy. Just an old oven that picked the worst possible time to stop working. Naturally, the bakery defended itself, explaining that they didn't even know Whoopi was the customer. Also, their ovens don't check voter registration before breaking down. At this point, Whoopi had a choice. She could have admitted she overreacted, maybe even laughed it off. But instead, she let the lie sit. She let the internet roast that bakery like a batch of fresh muffins, all because she wanted to play the victim. And here's the best part. Bill Maher didn't even need to say a word. Whoopi was doing his job for him. Because what's more damaging to your credibility than being wrong about something as serious as the Holocaust? Being wrong about cake. Now, Bill Maher steps back into the ring. He isn't the kind of guy to hold grudges. He actually prefers to let the facts do the talking. And in this case, the facts weren't exactly working in Whoopi's favor. During an episode of Real Time with Bill Maher, he casually addressed the entire situation without even mentioning Whoopi by name.
Scan your head like you're a cashier and I'm a bunch of bananas. I'm not bananas, you are.
That's how bad it was. He didn't need to. Everyone already knew. He called out the selective outrage of Hollywood, pointing out how some people can say the most ridiculous things and somehow still keep their jobs while others get canceled over a bad joke. And if there was one person in Hollywood who fit that description perfectly, it was Whoopi Goldberg. See, Whoopi had spent years cheerleading for cancel culture, but the moment it turned on her, she suddenly wanted to talk about nuance and forgiveness. Funny how that works, huh? Maher, of course, saw right through it. He didn't need to rant. He didn't need to call for consequences. He just let the double standard speak for itself. And the audience? They got the message loud and clear. But here's where things get interesting. Bill Maher actually defended Whoopi. Again. Despite all their back and forth, Maher still stood by the idea that people shouldn't be suspended or canceled for saying dumb things, even when that person was Whoopi. Because unlike Whoopi, Maher actually believes in free speech, even when he completely disagrees with what's being said. So, after all this, where does Whoopi Goldberg stand? Did she take a step back, reflect on how she got here, and maybe reconsider her approach to, well, everything? Of course not. Whoopi hasn't learned a thing. She's still sitting at the view table, lecturing people, and pretending like none of this ever happened. It's almost impressive. The ability to completely ignore reality and continue as if nothing's changed.